on our face. Um, Trying to think, don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. We
Eggs,
can have
yeah.
a nest egg, a supply of money, I guess. Sometimes we say somebody is a good egg or a bad egg, and that simply refers to their character, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, there's lots of expressions about the humble egg. And I guess I've just invented one as humble as an egg. It doesn't make any sense, does it? But it's quite a nice, quite a nice sounding expression. But the last thing I would say about eggs
Yeah.
is, and it's kind of almost a scientific point, and you may or may not want to try this later when you've had your dinner, and that is if you hold an egg between your thumb and, say, your index finger, so
Yeah.
holding it at the oval ends of it, you can press as hard as you like and you won't crack it. It won't crack. Now, you may may not believe that, but an egg is known to be incredibly strong on its north and south points, if you see what I mean. So
All
you
right.
may want to try that. Perhaps do it over the sink or something like that, or wear a big apron. But you can try it. And I'm trying to think. I'm sure I have tried this before, and I honestly can't remember whether my hand was subsequently covered in yolk. But I seem to recall that I couldn't break it, and it's just something about the egg which is particularly strong in that part of it. So you may try that as an experiment. You can try after our podcast, cuz. So yeah, give that one a go. So that's the humble egg, as I say. It's a wonderful thing, really. It can be done in lots of ways. And just one last thing I just thought of. Have you ever heard of eggs Benedict?
Eggs Benedict. No. No, I don't
You've
think
not
I.
heard of it?
No.
Okay, well it's a recipe. It's actually it originated in New York, the Waldorf Hotel in New York, quite a
All
few
right.
years ago now, and it's a breakfast or brunch, and it's a very popular thing, particularly in America. Eggs Benedict, and I think you can get it in restaurants here as well. Let me tell you what it comprises.
Right.
It comes with an English muffin broken in half, which is then toasted, and that's topped with Canadian bacon. I'm going to make you feel hungry in a minute, cuz. So, English muffin toasted, topped with Canadian bacon, then two or three poached eggs, which is
All
quite
right.
a lot, but it is all part of the deal. And then it's topped off with the classic French hollandaise sauce. And I think that it's been described as very decadent, very rich, but very satisfying. I have had one once, and once it to that extent of all the component parts of the recipe, and it is very good. It's very good. So that's an eggs Benedict. It was named after a guy called Lemuel Benedict in New York. He
Ah,
got very drunk one night. He was a businessman, so he went to the hotel the next morning where he used to have his breakfast, and he spoke to the waiter, and he wanted this recipe that I've just described. The
right.
waiter went to the chef, who really liked it, and he called it's his eggs Benedict, and it started life from there, eggs Benedict.
All right.
And apparently
Oh.
it was good for Lemuel Benedict's hangover, so it's also a hangover cure as well. So yeah, so that's eggs, a very good easy food to make. Lots of different ways, aren't there? Fried, poached. Eggs Benedict is poached eggs, of course, boiled, hard boiled, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
let's be grateful for the humble egg and
Yeah.
the hens that provide it. It's good stuff.
And of course, I think you left out the egg omelette. Ah.
Of course I did, yeah. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. That's why I didn't say that. So, yeah, so that's eggs, which leads us nicely on to. So, yeah, so that's eggs, which leads us nicely on to, excuse me, nicely on to suffragettes.
Oh
I couldn't
yeah.
think of a way to link the two. So, can you describe what the suffragettes were and what they did?
Was it the women that fought for the women's right to vote in England?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let me tell you something about that. Because it's quite an interesting story. There were women's groups in the late 1800s, early 1900s,
Yeah.
who were campaigning, advocating for women's suffrage, which means the right to vote, because incredibly, women could not vote at all. They had no rights to vote. So there are a couple of various groups, but two specific ones. One, they formed the National Union of Women's Suffrage, and
Right.
they were actually called suffragists, which is not so commonly
Oh,
known, suffragists. But they were a group who protested, advocated the women's right to vote, but they wanted to do it with peaceful methods. Peaceful means, constitutional ways of doing it. The other one, in 1903, somebody called Emmeline Pankhurst, very famous name really,
yeah.
the famous suffragette. She started the Women's Social and Political Union,
All right.
which I think its motto was deeds, not words. They were very determined, very, very militant as well. I mean, we've
Oh,
seen in more recent years, we've seen some militancy, I guess, with climate change protesters, blocking roads, throwing paint on buildings and on works of art and stuff, and other things that can also break the law. And the suffragettes, as they became known, in fact, the reason they became suffragettes was because the newspapers at the time rather mocked them, mocked the group who were doing this. And
yeah.
of course, it was women's suffrage. And it's a bit like the letters E-double-T-E, people put on the end of a name sometimes as a bit of sarcasm. Oh, these little people doing this, suffragettes. That's where that came from. So
Right.
anyway, they actually were quite militant. They indulged in lots of window smashing, which is quite a
Wow.
thing to be doing in significant buildings. And other things, they disrupted important meetings where they could. And we see that now sometimes, don't we? We see somebody rushing on the stage in a political meeting or something like that. Or even on a football pitch, you get people rushing on to protest about this, that, or the other. Well, they did lots of that. Some of them were jailed because they also committed arson. They set fire to buildings, but never, I believe, with the intention of killing anybody. They were empty buildings they chose, but they still committed what is a very